Hello, this is S.K. Williams. If you have skipped ahead, the requisite minuets, tin 5, I thank you. Because the contest be still on, this shall be another stilted video, but it shall be the last of this variety, for I am changing methods. But the topic today is one very dear to me, and one that, since my channel has fallen under scrutiny, has, regrettably, become necessary to address. Topic does deserve than what I give better. But channel is under rock of gaggle. So, what speak I of? Speech free. I speak of speech free. So, I intend later week this, though I be ill, so it be not possible by necessary to do. But do keep in mind, I am using euphemism, because I have been placed in a category of observance, which I hope shall either end at the end of November or January. I'm also ill this week, so this fit till is not entirely fake for the way I'm speaking. I'm actually congested, I'm coughing and tired, a bit weak feeling. But don't cry for me, world, for recover shall I. It has, of course, been in the news on the large channels that they fear placing restrictions upon. Though they do place restrictions, just less so. But I would like to address the issues of not being able to use the words I like without being penalized if I say the wrong words. And yes, I know that is a laborious way of saying what it is I wish to say. But a man whose name sounds similar to Jack Kersy, spelled with a K, his initials would be JK, Jack Kersy, was at the Forum for World Economics. There he spoke in Sweden about how the First Amendment is a major block to being able to hammer out of existence sources of misinformation. talking about how awful it is that people select their own sources, and if they get their information from only one source, and that source is sick, well, look how awful that is. They sent alarm bells through many people. And I ended up having to do a video again on atheism, because even though that's a topic I would like to discuss in more detail, let's face it, doing so like this is rather poor, and it's not the only issue I ever wanted to focus on. But because it's what I spoke about immediately before the restrictions, I'm still permitted to talk about it, even though Gaggle actually prefers the atheist side to my own. Thus I am forced into mad obsession with a singular topic. Oh, don't get me wrong, I'd still talk about the topic, just not quite as oft. But therein lies the point. I already know what Jack Kersys' actual proposal would do. Because tech companies are doing it already. And so is a country that has undue influence today. And I'm not going to name that country's real-world name, but I am going to use a name that, if you know anything about this sort of thing, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sinoland. The problem, this is a country that is called the Central Kingdom, if you know what I mean. And hopefully the AI does not. Which brings us also, when we speak about tech companies, to William Dawes. Yes, that's a euphemism. But think about what you do with a door. You enter it. And you enter into other sorts of things like portals, passages, entrances. And I'm sure there's another word. Sounds like 8 or irate. But I won't be using that one. When I speak of this man, William Entrance, you can sort of figure out who I'm talking about, hopefully. He used to run a very large software company. Has actually proposed using an intelligent synthetia program to eliminate harmful speech in real time. Because having human monitors, you may let certain things pass. Certain things that call for violence or call for people to not get vaccines. We need an intelligent synthetia to scan and make sure those posts are never seen. Because if someone makes a post like that, even if it's caught and destroyed, but it's been up a day, the damage has been done. If that post is only up a day, no human could keep up in real time, and such posts might last a day and do their damage. So to combat misinformation, we should create an intelligent synthetia and release it upon the internet and edit or delete people's posts. We all know that the problem with misinformation would be resolved by people who would need to know what misinformation is. And the arbiter of that misinformation will ultimately be the powerful companies or the government, or both working in collusion with one another. We both know that our rights and our freedoms that are ostentatiously to be protected by these measures would in reality be eroded. And this channel, with its currently poor quality videos, granted, I was never great at video making anyway, so poor quality was not too much of a stranger, but they are worse now than they used to be. But this channel has already been subjected to such measures. I don't really think a human has targeted my channel, and certainly they're not monitoring it. It's intelligent synthetia, which has labeled me some sort of risk. And I don't know why, because they are not forthcoming with information on what exactly one did. But I noticed this trend beginning after I posted a video condemning the calls for violence in the attempted removing from the mortal coil of presidential candidate and once President Danielle Trumpet. I don't think that there is a person who should not fear granting the government and powerful corporations like Gaggle Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. The power to determine what is and is not misinformation. Because this is going to be nothing more than granting them the power to tell us what we are allowed to say, what we are allowed to believe. And considering the Forum of World Economics in Sweden has also praised the Sino Republic of the People and its credit social programs, and is already talking of using intelligent synthetia or restructuring economic systems and creating a society which is exclusionary to what Noah Yuval Harari called the useless class. A prediction that he made about keeping them happy with video games and drugs is not one that is a brilliant philosopher is making ahead of time. It's one that they are planning to implement. Harari is not really that intelligent. He's just being promoted. Much like the new atheism was astroturf. Harari is just astroturf. It's the same thing. It's the same people backing them. The new atheism was, by the way, also well funded by wealthy interests who also have connections to the Forum of World Economics. That's why atheist organizations like Humanist International don't talk about this, like Christian channels do, for instance. But their future they're planning, this Star Trek-like utopia of science and reason prevailing, religion being sidelined and hopefully going extinct, a world of unity and order and tolerance, will never come to fruition, because their world is not one in which science prevails over religion, in which secular values displace religious belief. It is one in which they implement a humanist religion, and it is one in which their religion is going to be what they claim all religions are like, and most religions aren't like this. It will be totalitarian and dictatorial, and you will be punished for not holding to these dogmas. The only difference is they won't call them dogmas, because they will insist they have no religion. They will talk about freedom whilst removing freedom. They will talk about tolerance whilst being intolerant of anyone who disagree with them. They will even say that they need to be intolerant of certain groups in order to preserve tolerance, and talk about the so-called paradox of tolerance. They are going to use this to destroy dissent from their perspectives. In this contest, we have already seen 2 attempts to send to the great beyond Daniel Trumpet. I pretend not that Daniel Trumpet be a perfect man. I worship him not as a god or follow his movement, but I don't want him to be dispatched. And frankly, with all his faults and his compromises of late, compromises which Matt Fradd over on the Remnant has talked about very brilliantly. I agree broadly with his point. They still fear him. Those compromises do nothing to get rid of that. And ultimately, I don't think they fear Daniel Trumpet. I think they fear what Daniel Trumpet symbolizes and represents. That's why they need to connect him to scary images like Project 2025. It's Daniel Trumpet's Project 2025. And of course, Daniel Trumpet has nothing to do with Project 2025, and Project 2025 is not frightening. If you actually sat and read the thing, it's boring because it's policies. It's 900 pages of it, but it's what I do for a living, so it's not that hard for me at this point. I do professional research. Project 2025 is not really as awful as they say it is, and a lot of the things they claim are in it, like removing certain forms of fertility treatment, are not actually in the document. A lot of what they say about the document is fraudulent. It's basically run-of-the-mill conservatism. But I can't be speaking much on that for obvious reasons. But it is a troubling trend. They obviously want to dictate what we are allowed to say in public. They are obviously willing to destroy, in the United States of America, the First Amendment. They are obviously removing these rights in other places like the United Kingdom, Ireland, Germany, all whilst decrying countries like the Rus. As if I am supposed to fear them for their anti-democracy? The truth of the matter is, they are trying to bring about that bold new world spoken by men such as H.G. Wells, and to do so they have to eliminate people who have differing beliefs. They have to create this dictatorship of the proletariat and eliminate the bourgeoisie. And that is what this is an effort to do. It's bizarre because they don't really follow Marx perfectly. It's a bunch of rich people pretending to be working class whilst living in mansions, rather like Hollywood, which decries capitalism whilst living in the most luxurious capitalist lifestyle possible. They have an intellectual fascination with something and don't admit that it's not the reality as they themselves wish. In the end, they will create an oligarchy rather than a Marxist utopia where the wealth is centralized into the correct and proper hands of people who hold the correct ideology. And a major step in that will be the elimination of our rights to speak freely. It is all about social engineering and controlling what we're allowed to say, for if they can control what we can say, then they hope to be able to control the thoughts of the society, because they will be the ones controlling everything that is said. It's an effort to manipulate us into their new golden age. But it is a golden age we gain, not by ascending up, but by descending down. And they will continue to have us descend down until we reach the 9th circle of hell. And they see this as ascension, as climbing up. They already propose the flight from this mortal world of people, not only with terminal illness, but with simple chronic conditions that would cost the state too much, or people with depression. And ultimately, we are supposed to start thinking in a collectivist terms of what is good for society and what is not good for society. Again, this is the problem that we've seen throughout the 20th century as well, when people attempted to implement those 19th century ideals, the ideas that you would know about if you heard my atheist videos, because they're the ones that the atheist movement came from. The progressive movement. From this came Marxism, but it also is where factism came from. Because quite contrary to the way we present it now, which is largely false, the idea that on the left you have Marxism and communism, and on the right you have fascism. The truth is, fascism is left-wing. They both come out of Hegelian dialectics. They both are efforts to apply the dialectic of power. They are both collectivist organizations. They both came from the same germ bed. They just disagree on certain specifics and details. But that is the frame to which they are working with. It operates on the dialectic of power. This is why we get so much identity politics, and why we have this idea of oppressor versus oppressed, and why we are told that those who oppress can never be oppressed themselves, and anything that the oppressed do to free themselves from the oppressor is justified. This is, by the way, the same logic that atheists use to say that Christianity can't be attacked because it's the most popular religion, the majority are still Christian. They'll have to change their excuse when that ceases to be the case. But for now, they're using the dialectical power to say that it's okay to do anything you want to Christians because they're the majority. They're the oppressor, and we are the oppressed. We can do what we want with it. And in the end, you can't just have an endless cycle of oppressor overthrowing oppressed. So in the end, we're going to have to accept that there is this perpetual oppression of history that used to be, but now we're free of it, but we must still fight it. And the people who are actually over us are just common men at the bottom, even though they are wealthier and better off than us and telling us what to do. They are not oppressors. And it will never work, just like it didn't work when Funny Mustache Man Charlie Chaplin did it in Jerryland. It's not going to work because it didn't work in Italiano when Mussolini did it. It's not going to work because it didn't work in the land of the Rus under John Lennon. Yes, that's a euphemism for someone else. It didn't work, and it can't work. And yet here we are trying it again. Seeing all the people as a collective whole and judging individual worth based upon the value they give the whole, with the whole being driven toward that ideology of progress and enlightenment that is determined by the oligarchs who run the corporations and determine who our political leaders shall be and control the communications of within it. Oligarchs who hate capitalism but love the wealth that's generated by capitalism, and who use the mechanisms of our reliance on this technology and their monopolistic control of it. A monopolistic control which, by the way, is threatened currently, but not as badly as people think, because even if Gaggle were to be carved up into different companies, those companies could be owned by the same handful of people, much like the television networks are, and they can all still collude with each other since they have similar values and beliefs and can work together. This is the problem with the media taking over. The old media is dying and the new media is rising, and they're trying to seize control of it. We already see orchestrated efforts even against people who speak about entertainment, like Critical Drinker. He is an evil man that must be stopped. Or Gary on Nerdrotic. And they don't even talk about important issues, really. They talk about television shows and films. And yet we have orchestrated efforts against him. Look at Star Wars Theory. There's an effort to try and remove him. Now, granted, Gaggle didn't remove them. But that's because they make lots of money and are highly successful for the platform. Ultimately, money is trumping in that case. Which is ironic because it's good. I don't want their voices silenced. I oppose the not allowing words to be free policies. But it's doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. It's not a principled stance. And if you're not making money for them or not making enough, they might decide it's better to silence you since you're off message. Especially if you're talking about things other than just entertainment. But that is the bold new world we face with such people in it. And here we are. Here we stand in a world in which power is being amassed by very wicked people. And as Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Whoso loveth wisdom rejoiceth his father. But he that keepeth company with harlots spendeth his substance. The king by judgment established the land, but he that receiveth gifts overthroweth it. We live in a world where people receive gifts, bribes. We live in a world driven by money that is contemptuous of money. We live in a world where we elevate technical leaders who claim to be enlightened and know better than us and to use their power
to limit the power of others to gain their position, for they oppose the very system that gave them that power, whilst employing its tools for themselves, centralizing power to themselves. We live in a world where we are enslaved not directly by soldiers patrolling our streets, but by the control of information, and being hammered down slowly by a bureaucratic system. We live in a world where our freedom is shattered, all in the name of progress and enlightenment and tolerance and diversity. And in the name of diversity, diversity dies. Diversity of thought. And our voices are silenced under the roar of the crowds, or over the simple whispers of intelligent synthetia, and our masters must approve of all we say. This world is moving to a darker time, and we must oppose it. I haven't much else to say. The next video I give will be using a different system to keep ahead of the intelligent synthetia. But for now, I take my leave of you. Thank you. God bless, and goodbye.